that if anyone wasn't able to join the meeting, this information is there. It's posted on the website, on NDOT's traffic calming website, which is TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And you can access that there, or if you have any neighbors that missed the meeting and are curious, they'll be able to see exactly what you did. So I've started the recording. My name is Amy Birch. I'm a traffic engineer and consultant that works on behalf of NDOT to facilitate the traffic calming program. With me, I also have Dylan Weaver on the call, and he's going to be helping me monitor the chat box, make sure I get to any questions that are in there. So feel free to type those in as we go along. We have a small enough group. We can certainly have conversation. If you have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask those, and we'll get to those. But thank you for joining. We're here to talk about the Patton Avenue and Twin Street traffic calming project. And council member, feel free to let me know if you'd like to say anything or as we get started.
Okay. Well, I think I just figured my headset out just in time.
I can hear you. Yes.
So first, thank you for hosting us. I know this is an important project, so appreciate you helping us with this project as well as facilitating this conversation. So thank you.
Okay, well, we'll carry on and get going on this. So again, thanks for spending part of your evening with us to learn about the project. We're talking about Patton Avenue and Twin Street, and we're going to go over some background information, talk about our toolbox, and then we have a concept to share with you all to get feedback on, and then we'll do next steps. So let's start with the background information about what traffic calming is. This program, the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program, focuses on residential streets. That's streets like Patton and Twin. We're not talking about Charlotte Avenue or streets like that, but what it is physical solutions that change the street so that it encourages driver behavior that is more compliant and safer, to encourage those lower speeds over the length of the street. And we're targeting speed reduction with this program. We often talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming, which are education, enforcement, and engineering. Education, part of that is these meetings that we hold. We advertise those to the residents, property owners along all the streets that have been selected to tell you about traffic calming in the program. NDOT also does other types of education and awareness and engagement about traffic calming and other safety programs that the department does. Enforcement is what the police department does for the city, of course, with speed enforcement. We understand and know that obviously the police department has a really big job that can't be on every residential street 24 hours a day to keep people from speeding. So that's where engineering comes into play, which is that changing of the street, either design or modifying the street to get those driver behaviors in check. So this is a slide showing the correlation between vehicle speed and pedestrians' chance of survival, because we know that there's a close correlation there. And the city has a commitment to Vision Zero, and this traffic calming program falls under that Vision Zero goal, which is a goal to have 0 deaths on our roadways. And so traffic calming program is part of that. So this graphic is showing that at a 25 mile per hour speed, a pedestrian has an 89% chance of survival. But as that speed goes up to 35 miles per hour, the pedestrian's chance is 68% of survival. And then at 45 miles per hour, a pedestrian's chance of survival is 35%. So this tells us that we really need slow speeds on roadways to protect those vulnerable vulnerable users like pedestrians and cyclists, but also drivers. And so speed also plays into an avoidance of a crash, because if you're driving slower, you can stop faster. You have a wider cone of vision even to see things maybe outside the roadway that may be entering the roadway. And so speed crashes are also less severe at slower speeds if they do occur, and as this graph is showing. So we're really aiming to reduce vehicular speeds. So this program is application based. So neighborhoods or streets can apply for traffic calming, and we have a really great demand for this program, because there's just a lot of people that want people to drive slower on their streets. So as of last fall, we had over 500 neighborhood streets that had applied for the program. And in the summer, the end of last summer, which is when these two streets were selected, we selected 85 neighborhood streets for the program. Typically, we select 50 streets a year, and we do them in 25 groupings, 25 street groupings in the early part of the year and the later part of the year. But due to some budget that council allocated to the traffic calming program, some surplus budget, this program selected 85 neighborhood streets in August as opposed to the typical 25. So that's how this street was selected. And outside the program, there are probably a number of things that, if you're not familiar with the Hub Nashville, there might be a number of things that could be accommodated through Hub Nashville. This is kind of the one-stop shop for Metro, and it's not just NDOT issues, it's stormwater, trash, things like that you may need services for. And so you can call 311. There's also online access, hub.Nashville.gov, or there's even an app you can download on your phone. And so what's great about it is if you make that request, you get a request number, and it's something you can follow up on if needed. But what this hub does is gets that request and need to the right department, the right person to get it resolved or answered. So maintenance items, brush collection, things like that. Street lights are out. It's just a great resource for you. So back to traffic calming and the prioritization. So we told you that we had 500 streets that are asking for traffic calming, but we can only select so many based on budget that's available. And how do we do that? We have a data-driven prioritization process that looks at 5 major criteria for selection. So we collect and measure this information for all the streets that have applied for traffic calming, and those that score highest are the ones that are selected. So we look at vehicular speed. We go out and measure the speed on all the streets that have requested traffic calming, and we compare the 85th percentile speed to our desired speed of 25 miles per hour, which is the posted speed limit on probably all residential local streets now as of last year. So the 85th percentile speed is the speed that 85% of the cars over the course of a day are driving that speed or below. And so it means that 15% is going above that speed. But the 85th percentile speed is just a measure that we traffic engineers often reference. So the speed is worth 45% of the score. And we also measure the volume and look at the daily volume. And that is worth 25% of the score. We also take into consideration whether there are destinations nearby that where we would expect people that live on a street to want to walk to, such as schools, parks, libraries, community centers. So we look at all of those that are near the street. We also look at, and the destination's worth 5%. We also look at non-driver accommodations. So that's, are there sidewalks on the street? Are there bikeways on the street, bus routes and transit, those other type of accommodations. And so that is worth 10% of the score. And then the vulnerable users, injury and fatalities, we look back at 10 years worth of crash data to identify whether there's been a pedestrian or cyclist injury or fatality on that street. And then that's worth 15% of the score. So it's scored out of 100. And so those streets that score the highest are really demonstrating the greatest need that we see based on this prioritization to be selected for traffic calming. So both Patton and Twin, we're treating these as two separate streets, but both of those were selected. But we're doing this joint meeting because it's basically one street together since it's connected. So in your neighborhood, we wanted to show some data that we've collected and was used to make the selection for Patton Avenue and Twin Street. So on the left is Patton Avenue, and that is the 85th percentile speed that I talked about that we measured was 35 miles per hour. On Twin, it was 37 miles per hour. And then both the speed limits are 25, and the daily volume is roughly the same as we would expect, around between 1,600 and 1,700 vehicles per day. That's both directions of travel. Then the street width on Patton Avenue is more narrow, as you know. It doesn't have markings, and it's 23 feet wide. There's no sidewalks. And then on Twin, there are some sidewalks, but it's not a full, complete network or even on both sides of the street. And then there's the pedestrian bridge that comes in over I-40 at that end of Twin. So I'm going to show a map here, and this is taken from NDOT's online traffic calming tracker map. So I've put the legend here, but what we're showing is we keep track of all the streets that have requested traffic calming, and those are the streets that are the pink lines, and those are applications on file, but those streets have not been selected. They haven't scored high enough in the prioritization. And then the blue lines, we don't have any straight blue lines, but we have a dashed or solid blue lines, but the dashed blue line represents streets where we have already completed a traffic calming project with vertical measures. So you can see that that one that's shown there, that's O'Brien Avenue. And that project, I believe, was installed in around April of 2022, I think. And then the green streets that are highlighted, those are the streets that are in progress. And so up to the left-hand corner, I believe that's Annex and James that have been selected. I think they've gone through the balloting process or in the construction queue for those two streets. And then Patton Avenue and Twin is our street that we're working on right now, or streets that we're working on now through this conceptual phase, meeting phase of the program. So that's the limits of our project. Now I'm going to talk about our toolkit real quick. These are the things that we use. And first item, speed cushions. This is what we use the most because many reasons, but they're very effective. People really like them, and that's what we get requests for the most even, is to install some type of vertical measure. So speed cushions are the type that we use in this program. Are rubberized devices. So you can see in that picture in the bottom left that they're modular, and so they come in pieces, and we can form them into several different configurations based on the streets, the existing streets kind of design, width, whether it has markings or not. We can change the markings on the speed cushions to match the street and fit within the street. But they are 3 inches high, and so the way they're configured, you kind of, travel up and over them. The best way to approach them is to just drive straight over them, instead of trying to do one wheel on and one wheel off. We do see that does sometimes happen, but they're still effective because you still have to slow down even if you've just got one tire on the cushion. NDOT really likes these because they do have a reduced impact to emergency vehicle responses, because emergency vehicles have a wider wheelbase than your typical passenger car or even pickup truck. And so those emergency vehicles have an ability to straddle these cushions. And so they just have a little bit less impact as in reducing their speeds as they're trying to reach that emergency. With these speed cushions, we install them with warning signage like you see in the picture on the top left. Speed cushions, we have an advisory speed plaque of 20 miles per hour. In cases where we have bike lanes on the street, like the picture in the lower right, we will often incorporate the flexible delineator post with the design so that drivers are not tempted to try to drive around the speed cushion. That keeps them in the lane where they're supposed to be. And so depending on how wide the street is, we may use 2, we may use 3, we've used 4 on really wide streets in a series. And then as we install these, we put them in a series so that you're not just driving over one set of speed cushions and then there's nothing else on the rest of the street. We'll put them in series spacing somewhere around 400 feet apart, so that we have a consistent speed. Because if we just use one set, we know that drivers may still drive as fast as they typically would, slow down really fast at one set of cushions and then pick their speed back up. But if they're driving and they see the next set or see the sign for the next set, they have less time to pick that speed back up and go on. So they just have more of a consistent speed along the length of the street. And that's really what we're looking for. Speed tables we sometimes use. Not as much as the speed cushions because I don't have the gaps, but it's made of the same material. And so the real idea is that it stretches the whole width of the street. And they're sometimes a little bit longer. These pictures are showing one that's 14 feet wide or 14 feet long in the direction of the vehicle's travel. But we use these more so in places where there may be higher classification roads. So over some time last year, NDOT collected some before and after data because we wanted to know how these measures are being used or how effective they are here in Nashville. And so these 2 graphs are showing the speed that we measured and collected before and after for 6 streets where these type of measures have been installed. And so the graph on the left is the average speed comparison before and after. So the average went from 31 miles per hour to 22 miles per hour. And then that 85th percentile speed on the right went from 37 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. So we find these to be very effective in achieving what our goals are in trying to get that 25 mile per hour speed. We also incorporate radar feedback signs into some of our design plans. Often these are used in places where we cannot use vertical measures. Places that have, or streets that have like a lot of horizontal or vertical grade is difficult for us to use the vertical measures. So sometimes we would use these radar feedback signs, but it flashes your speed at you as a driver approaches. It's a great reminder. Many drivers don't realize how fast they're going and don't intend to drive that fast. So they're also effective. And we'll use these on streets that have volume that's too high for your typical vertical measures that we talked about earlier. And in some before and after studies, Metro's also found that there's been success in using these as well. But it's that constant reminder for drivers what their speed is. We also use narrowing through pavement markings. Streets are often wider than they need to be. And so we might incorporate some white edge lines to give a visual narrowing of the street, or center line and edge line, like the picture on the right. Bulb outs and chicanes is another tool that we use using paint and markings and these flexible delineator posts, but it's just narrowing that street width, particularly at intersections. It narrows the crossing distance for pedestrians, can also be effective in designating where on-street parking can and cannot happen, or should and should not happen. So that's bulb outs and chicanes. And then, or that's bulb outs on the left, and chicanes are on the right, where we utilize lane markings to add curvature to a straight street. By zigzagging the road, if you will, or the street lanes. And sometimes that's done, like these pictures show, by alternating parking from one side of the street to the other, like Fairfax Avenue, over around Hillsborough Village. And I think Kenner Avenue in West Nashville is a street that has this type of design. So that horizontal curvature gets drivers to slow down because they need to stay in the lane as they drive. Traffic circles are a tool we use less often than the others that I've talked about, because we do have some limitations on the exact width of an intersection in order to be able to put this type of design in. But they operate kind of like a roundabout, where drivers drive counterclockwise around the circular island in the middle of the street. So now I'm going to jump into the measures that we're recommending for Patton Avenue. I'm going to talk about Patton and then Twin, but I'll tell you they're very similar. Treatments, I'm going to look real quick at some discussion, see if there's anything I need to address about the looks like a lot. Dylan, is there any questions I need to answer right now, or should we carry on and then maybe get to these questions?
We had one question that was asking if we could match another street, but
Oh yeah, O'Brien, yes. I did happen to glance over and see that one. And yes, this is a treatment similar to O'Brien. We're just showing high-level conceptual plans right now. That we like to do that to present it to the neighborhood group, and then we put a more refined, like, construction ready plan together after we've had this meeting and had gotten some feedback. So that way we're efficient with the time, but essentially we're looking at 3 sets of cushions between Westboro Drive and East Bend Drive, which is an all-way stop. And these would be probably in sets of 3 based on the width of the street. And we're also showing in this box that we could do the edge line and center line striping to add, more narrowing and definition to the street. that's, you know, something I think we'd like feedback from this group, if that's something you're interested in. I think there are markings on the twin section of the roadway because it's wider. So we could like have that consistency through there and make those lanes, you know, more narrow through that striping. So we have one set between Westboro and West Bend, and then another set between West Bend and Crowley, and then another set between Crowley and East Bend. And so the always stop also kind of fits into the spacing. We factor that in as we place these. And I'll say that one question we often get is about driveways. So we do have some guidelines that we follow about how close we can put these to driveways. We're not going to put them at the back of your driveway. We try to stay 15 feet away from a driveway, which allows you to turn in and out, back in and out, or turn in and out of your driveway without driving over them sideways, essentially. So this is the plan for Patton. I'll show twin, and then maybe we have some questions we can address. So again, the East Bend always stop on the left side of the screen, and then we have 4 sets because it's a little bit longer, so we had ability to put 4 sets here. So altogether, I guess it's 7 sets of speed cushions, and similar configuration. There's already some markings, though they may be faded. We can always refurbish those if needed. And it would be a similar treatment. Any feedback on that? I'm just glancing through some of the comments that we'd already had, and it looks like there was already hopes of speed bumps or humps or something. We call them speed cushions, but I think you know what we're talking about because it's the ones like the ones on O'Brien. And so with this type of design, we would really expect drivers to slow down and have that consistent speed around 25 miles per hour, which you know, particularly on streets that don't have a full complete sidewalk, that's just, it's more comfortable, it's safer, and that's our goal. So if there's not any questions about the plan or comments, it sounds like lots of positivity for the speed cushions. All right. Confirmation that you guys needed to be selected is what I'm reading in the comments. That was the feeling. So I might move on, but we can always answer more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. That was our plan. Let's talk about the program and how this thing works. Like I said, we start with an application, and we have 2 windows that NDOT offers for applications. The next one is coming up in March. And from there, we will determine which streets we need to collect data for, do that data collection, the prioritization. That takes a couple months. And then there's a selection that's announced for the number of streets. It's, like I said, it's typically 25. In the case of when your 2 streets were selected, it was 85 streets. So then we hold our neighborhood meeting. We reach out, the announcement's made, we reach out, try to get that meeting scheduled. We're having that now, where we go over the program and present our concept design. And if the neighborhood participants in the meeting are comfortable with the design that's been done, what we'll do is do the concept that's shown. We will create a more refined plan with a little more detail that can then be handed to the contractor when that time comes for implementation and construction. So going from here, I think we would be moving into that design phase if we don't have any real major changes that we need to make on the concept plan. We always have an opportunity to have a second neighborhood meeting if the neighborhood feels that that's needed. We would present mostly the same information unless there was the plan, modifications to the plan that we need to look into and make those changes. But if there's not requests during this meeting to make any significant changes, sometimes we miss it. Like sometimes neighborhoods really don't want speed cushions. They want radar feedback signs or something. And so we might would need to have another meeting to talk about that and put that together. But if we don't need another meeting, we don't have to do it. And then we would move into, after the design is complete, the online ballot. I have some slides to talk about that. And once the online ballot is complete, it moves into our construction queue, which right now is long. It is taking longer than we would like. NDOT is fully aware of that and is moving that, making some changes within the processes that they have and the contracting that they have to get the contractor to move faster, and maybe multiple contractors. So we're working to shorten that so that there's not such a lag time between this balloting phase or even the selection date and when it's constructed. Right now, we're working through some backlog. So once the ballot is favorable, we move into the construction. So let's talk about balloting, because that's a big part of this program, is demonstrating that there is support for this type of traffic calming on your street. So what NDOT does is sends these postcards to the out for the eligible people that can vote on it. And there's a 6-week window where voting is allowed. And each one will have a unique ID code so that, you know, sometimes there's duplicate votes, probably unintentional. You forgot you did it, or your spouse does it and you did it, and but it's one vote per property owner. And so if 66% of the respondents that vote yes, then the project moves forward. So we need 2/3 to be in favor of the project. And so when you get your ballot, you have an opportunity to vote yes or no for the project, and that's logged and tallied. On this ballot card, I want to reiterate that, though, it's 66% of the respondents. It's not necessarily 66% of the properties on the street. We would love for 100% of the property owners to vote, so that we know that there's a lot of support for the project, but it's 66% of the respondents. On this ballot card, the date that the ballot closes is on the card on the top right. The QR code takes you directly to the online ballot form. There's also a link that takes you to the plans that are posted on the website. So when you're ready to vote, your neighbor, whoever is ready to vote, you can see the plan and understand what you're voting for in case you've missed the meeting or something like that. There's also a phone number for NDOT on the postcard. You may need to leave a message, but if there's and get a call back, but if there's any reason why you can't manage to vote online, you can access some assistance there to do that. So once the 6 weeks is over, we take those votes and tally those and post them on NDOT's website, on the Traffic Calming website. Again, that's TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And you'll be able to see whether the ballot passed or failed. And I'll say that we've probably balloted 120 plus streets, and the pass rate is well over 90% for streets. So I don't want you to get too nervous about it, but it is important that you talk to your neighbors and make sure that they know they need to vote when they, and look for those postcards in the mail. So the who's eligible to vote, I've shown these for Patton in the top left and Twin in the bottom left. So those yellow property owners are the ones that receive the ballot postcards. So those postcards go to the owners of the property. So, you know, it's whatever address is on file with NDOT, not NDOT, with Metro property records. So if, you know, it's owned by someone who lives in Nebraska, that postcard goes to Nebraska. But property owners with multiple properties get only one vote. And we don't look at, you know, necessarily vacant properties. Those aren't eligible, and businesses are not eligible. I don't believe that's the case on either of these two streets. And so we're showing right here those that will be receiving those postcards. Okay, this is my contact information. Again, Amy Birch, that's my email address. I'm also showing NDOT's traffic calming email address. And we have, I'm not going to wrap up just yet, but wanted to put this out there again. This is our website. It's where all the videos for meetings are posted. So if you, you know, your neighbor missed it and you want to direct them there, that's where that goes. And as well as ballots, our ballot results, the program manual, our tracker map is there. The design plans are there, so you can see those. Let's see, lots of great information on the Traffic Calming website, and NDOT socials. Want to show that, but I want to pause, see if there's any questions that I need to be answering.
Amy, we had two questions. There was one asking about the improvements to the all-way stop that's at East Bend and Patton Avenue.
Okay.
Do you think,
Improvements. Sorry.
yeah, if there was anything that this program can do for that?
Like, I assume you're probably asking about like reinforcements or something like pavement markings. I think it does have stop bars painted on the street, but we can look at that. Our program does not do always stops as traffic calming. These are traffic control devices, so they're not a tool that we use in our traffic calming toolbox. I do encourage you, if there's an issue like the sign's been knocked down or it's faded and old or something like that and needs to be replaced, that's a great thing to put into the hub. To ask about, and that can, the sign shop gets that and can give it the attention it needs. I'm gonna look for that question to see if I can get more understanding on what's being asked. There is a question that says, have we considered adding a stop sign at every side street along Patton and Twin? I think I just answered that. We're not, we don't put stop signs up for traffic calming, because if we do that, if we overuse stop signs, they can be ignored because the general public understands that it's not really necessary, and that could lead to something that we don't want. Was that the other question, Dylan?
It was. Yeah.
Okay, great. Great.
Can you explain for what purposes we do consider stop signs then?
Yes, sure, I'd be glad to. We have some, through our industry standards, we have some pretty strict guidelines on when and where always stops are installed. And a lot of it does have to do with the traffic volume being a certain number, some certain volume of traffic. Also, there are some other things that we look at, whether it's pedestrian and bicycle traffic as well. And then visibility is one that is often a reason why an always stop is put in. If you are as a driver on a side street can't see if another vehicle is approaching without them stopping also, then that may be a reason that an intersection needs an always stop. So sometimes vertical or horizontal curvature could, like hills and curves, might cause a need for that. Crash data, a certain trend of crashes can also lead to a need for an always stop. So those types of things, primarily it's when the traffic volume is so heavy that it requires that type of traffic control to alternate the right of way, and whose turn it is to turn out is the reason, is the criteria. Okay, any other questions we need to address? Is there any comments on the plans, these concept plans that we've shown? I'm seeing some positivity about the lines, the street lines, the pavement marking lines on Patton, adding those as well with the speed cushions. I think there's a comment here or a question about people driving around the speed cushions, and we do take that into consideration as I think Dylan answered that very well, as we lay these out to discourage drivers to drive around. I do know some of that does happen on O'Brien, and we may need to address that. But what we're doing more often now is using this on streets that don't have curb and gutter or sidewalk. And we will often place the sign adjacent to the cushion so that that kind of acts as a deterrent for leaving the road to drive around a cushion. So we're getting better at that, and we'll certainly look at that as we lay these out on the street, particularly on the sections that don't have sidewalk. Okay, so given what looks to be pretty favorable comments on the plan as it's laid out, I would think that we don't need to host another meeting, but I would certainly defer to Councilmember and Blake, who helped organize this. If you think we need to do that for more outreach, we can. This is pretty good attendance, I would say. So I'm comfortable moving on to do the final design plan and then get the ballots out to you all. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds good to me. Appreciate your help and work on this, Amy. And
Yeah,
Dylan.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we will do that. Just to let you know, it'll probably be, I think that was in our slide, but a couple months to get our ballots out to you. We will send a update to Blake and to Councilmember Horton that those are coming out, so you can be looking for those. We try to get those out pretty fast so that there's not too much time between this meeting and those ballots being posted. So we'll try to do that within the next few weeks. And I think that's all I have for you all. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask away, but seems like we're on the right track, and we're glad to be working in your neighborhood and getting this to you.
Thank you for hosting this discussion, Amy, and thank you for everybody that joined here today and sharing your thoughts and input as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate the input. And we will post this in the next few days, the presentation. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
It went pretty well.
Yeah, thank you. Hang on, I wanted to grab that chat box. Where did it go?